So, Mike, let's go ahead and get into this a little bit. I want to go ahead and unpack what the Chiefs have done
Yeah, let's
in
do it.
rounds 2 and 3. First, we'll start off with Omar Norman-Lott, Mike. This is a guy that you had going to the Chiefs. You said that they could take him as high as the back end of the first round at pick 31. They ended up getting him in round 2, but you hit the nail on the head. They liked what they saw with Omar Norman-Lott. I'll go ahead and spew out a little bit of what I like about Norman-Lott, and I'll let you take over. But Norman-Lott, man, this is a guy that didn't get enough credit, in my opinion. If you go back and you watch the tape, he pops off the tape. You're excited to watch him play. He's a guy that reminds me a lot of like Johnny Newton from last year's draft, Kalijah Cansey from last year, or maybe the year before, I can't remember. Just a undersized defensive tackle that brings a hell of a pass rush to the team. And that's something that we can definitely use. We've struggled a little bit with pass rush on the edges lately, but Chris Jones has kind of been our bread and butter there. And now we got Omar Norman-Lott that can go in the middle with him. And it's going to be a handful for teams, I think, with that combo. He's very reminiscent of Turk Wharton, who had a good year last year alongside Chris Jones. But I think Omar Norman-Lott is a better player, or should I say has a higher ceiling than a Turk Wharton ever had. Omar Norman-Lott's first step is super explosive, and that's the first thing you'll realize when you start watching his tape. Natural power. I mean, he can transition with a lot of speed, devastating long arm move. He can walk centers back, collapse pockets from the interior, nasty hand fighting ability. If he's in tight spaces, those phone booth situations, as they like to call it, he's just got that good fighting ability. Quick processor on stunts and twists and things like that. He's a big time pass rusher, guys. Relentless motor. He's got that dog in him that I've been talking about. He's one of those players. And if you remember, Mike, when you talked about Omar Norman-Lott the first time, I said one thing that I really love about Omar Norman-Lott that people don't bring up is the fact that he shows up when the lights are on. When it's the fourth quarter, when you need a big play, when you need a big stop, he sniffs a sack out from a mile away, and he's going to be right there by the ball. He's sniffing sacks, Mike. Can you believe it? But no, he shows up with timely big plays. And I love clutch guys like that. Super, just highly competitive, shows flashes of complete dominance, overwhelming blockers, just nasty raw power. And that first step quickness is just insane. If you want to look at the downside of Omar Norman-Lott from my perspective, a little bit of a limited sample size with him, and a little bit of concern about his size being what's considered to be undersized. But I feel like the defensive tackle position over the years since Aaron Donald, it's starting to become more of a thing where they're using guys around this size inside. But I think overall, Omar Norman-Lott was a guy that was very overlooked in this draft. He reminded me a lot of Michael Hall Jr. from Ohio State last year, who I thought could be a really good prospect. Also, at times, he reminded me of Keanu Benton, which was a guy that the Chiefs really liked out of Wisconsin. A lot of people mocked Keanu Benton to us last year, I think. But really love Omar Norman-Lott. I think this was a hell of a pick, especially at the second round. This is my favorite pick of the draft so far, hands down. So, yeah, I'll let you go ahead, Mike. You can talk about your boy, because you're the one that predicted this pick.
Yeah, I did. So the other day I said he was going to be a round one pick. People said it was crazy. Look, he was getting hyped to get into round one. And then, of course, right before the draft come out, they said he had a chronic knee injury, and, of course, he falls. I was starting to think that maybe even without the chronic knee injury, he maybe falls out of the first round. And I'd said this the other day. He kind of reminds me of the Kingsley Suamataia pick that we did last year, where we put him into the first round based on what we thought we needed and his potential. And then the closer it got, we were like, okay, well, maybe he probably goes mid-second, late second this time, which is exactly how Kingsley did it, right? So we hit that pick last year. We turn around, we hit this one again this year with Omar Norman-Lott, and it kind of goes for the same reasons, but most of it was because of that chronic knee injury they kept saying. Look, I've seen it. If you watch him at any of the All-Star games, if you watch any of his film from 2024, the kid is explosive. You've already said this. I love Omar Norman-Lott. He gets in the backfield. He creates a lot of havoc. He's nasty. At 6'2", 291, he's a little bit bigger than Turk Wharton, but he plays like Turk Wharton, and he's probably got a higher ceiling than Turk Wharton ever thought about being, Steve. He's got 10 3/4 inch hands. He's almost got 11-inch hands. When he gets his mitts on you, he's going to throw you around. He is powerful. He's got 34-inch arms. It's not to be messed with. He's actually got some juice as a pass rusher. He's got 10 sacks over the past 2 years and 13 over the past 3 years. And if you go back and watch his tape at Arizona State, he can also not just play on the inside, but he can play on the outside, and that's what Spags likes. He can play over the tackle. He did that at Arizona State. He was a high motor guy. You can watch times where they would throw it to the edge, or a running back would break it out to the edge, or a quarterback would get around the corner, and he would run them down 20 and 30 and 40 yards up the field. He was a high motor effort guy, and he was outrunning linebackers and corners. He's got all of that. He has a true pass rush grade of an 88 and a 19% pass rush win rate. He can absolutely cause chaos. He can get after the quarterback. And if you want to watch it, go watch him versus Kent State this past year. That was a good one. Watch him versus Alabama in week 8. Watch him versus Vanderbilt in week 14. He could play. He likes to get after the quarterback. He could also, look, they said that he can't play the run. That was one of his knocks because they do this hockey-style switch, okay? They just do a whole line change. But I found a lot of clips on him playing the run, and I thought he actually done really well playing the run when he's given the chance. So I don't think that's a big deal, Steve. I think Brett Veach had to replace Turk Wharton. I think that eventually they're going to go maybe double dip and get a big guy that can stop the run, kind of in the vein of Mike Pennell or somebody like that. But for now, he decided to go with Omar Norman-Lott. I think it was a gift that chronic knee injury come out, and we got him at the end of the second round, just like we did Kingsley last year. I think he's going to come in. I think he's going to be productive. This was an A-plus pick. I think Brett Veach went A-plus to start the draft with Josh Simmons, Omar Norman-Lott.
Absolutely. I'd be right there with you giving an A for Norman-Lott. Let's move on to the next pick they took. Ashton Gillotte, the edge rusher from the Louisville Cardinals, Mike. So just right up the street from you. This is a kid we saw some college tape on. We watched a lot of his tape. This is somebody that was, I guess this is probably the most polarizing pick for the Chiefs so far in this draft. A lot of people weren't expecting it. I don't think we even had Gillotte on the radar for the Chiefs. We had talked about it a little bit, but nothing major. I thought they had their eye on a couple of other guys. So this one kind of struck people a little sideways. The initial reaction that we saw from the fan base was that they didn't like this pick. They thought it was a reach. This is a bad pick altogether. But I think, like I said earlier, this is one of those picks that I think that you have to settle into, and you'll eventually probably like him if you watch his tape more and read up on him. He's 6'3", 264. He had a 40 time of a 4.63. This guy's got a motor, right? So he's going to just constantly go kind of in the vein of a George Karlaftis, or I saw someone in the chat comparing it to the motor of like a Jared Allen, which is absolutely insane. This dude will get after a quarterback for sure. I mentioned earlier there were 3 guys that he really reminded me of, and he also just happened to be the top player comparisons from NFL Draft Buzz, which was Josh Paschal, Arnold Ebiketie, and Felix Anudike-Uzomah. I do think that he'll play at a higher level than Anudike-Uzomah in his first year. Uzomah kind of proved to be a guy that's going to take a while. If he does pan out, it's going to take a minute. I don't think we'll have that problem with Gillotte, Mike. I think he's a little bit ahead of the game there. He was on Bruce Feldman's freaks list, the freak athletes list. The guy, he's a good athlete. You'll read a lot about him not being that great, and if you watch the tape sometimes, you don't see it. You think you don't have that closing speed. But if you really start looking at it, they put him on the freaks list because he's 6'2". He added a dozen pounds or so. He's up to 276 pounds, but he still has hit 19.9 miles per hour on a GPS in game. In vertical jump of 36 inches, he power cleans 390 pounds, but strength coach Ben Souter said he could probably easily do 405 because he's so explosive. There's just a ton of upside with Gillotte, and I think that's what the Chiefs liked about him. They were very low-key and kind of hush-hush about this one. I did not see any connections from Ashton Gillotte to the Chiefs. I don't think they visited with him at all. So they kind of kept this one close to their chest. But just some of the things about him, On tape, you will kind of see him demolish some pass protection because he has the explosive first contact. Consistently jolts tackles backwards. I just think that he's got the strength, he's got the speed, and he's got the ceiling that they were looking for. And obviously they wanted to stick with the trenches here. This draft so far has had the theme of trenches up until they took the next guy we're going to talk about. But they stuck with defensive line. They took Gillotte here. I'm not in love with the pick, but I do not hate it whatsoever. I do think that there is some things to be excited about with him. The drawbacks are that he's got limited arm length. He's still got some development to do. And occasionally they think he gets over aggressive. But that's not necessarily a bad thing if you learn how to control that. So I think it's an exciting pick in the fact that there's a high ceiling there. And obviously the Chiefs seen something that they really loved about this kid. And it kind of just fits into the Spags mold when you really look into it. What did you think about the Gillotte pick, Mike?
Yeah, Gillotte, he was a guy that you thought you could have got maybe at the later pick in the third round. But the Chiefs said, look, we like him. We're going to go get our guy. He fits the Spags mold. He actually come in at the combine at 6'3", 264. So he came in an inch higher than they had him listed at U of L, and he came in about 10 pounds lighter than they had him at U of L. At 264, that's still about 10 pounds heavier than Felix Anudike-Uzomah plays at. So I think he's going to set the edge a little bit better than Felix did, and that was one of Felix's knocks so far. I think his motor is actually really good. I've seen George Karlaftis a lot. I feel like that is a pretty good comp for him. And I felt like the pick could be a little bit redundant. But at the same time, when you watched him on film, he would have flashes of getting after the quarterback and being fast. But there were also flashes of him not being able to get to the quarterback, and the quarterback would get rid of the ball just in time. So I seen a lot of Karlaftis, and what he had to do at his pro day was he had to come out and he had to run and he had to test well, and he had to show that he had that playing speed, because sometimes on film it just didn't show. And so like you said, he was on the Feldman's freak list. He was here, he was there. He always tested decently well, but on the film, it just didn't always look that way. But he come to the pro day, he ran a 4.65, which turned out to be one of the fastest 40s for a defensive end. He come out and run a 1.59 10-yard sprint, which is pretty fast. That may have been the fastest out of every defensive lineman. 36.5-inch vert, which ranked at the top of all defensive ends. So he showed some explosiveness. Like you said, he's got the shortest, one of the shortest arm lengths in the class. He's sub 32 arm length, and he's got the smallest hands out of all defensive ends by a lot. He only has 8.5-inch hands. I think I have 8.5-inch hands. So he can't really grab onto people very well. They will run through his hand tackle. So he has to be able to form tackle and do that, and you see that on film a lot. A lot of people they're not familiar with the Gillotte pick, but he had a 90 pass rush grade from PFF. He has a 21% win rate on the pass rush per PFF. He had 2 solid seasons, Steve, where he scored over an 85-8 and an 87-8. So he had 2 solid seasons. He had 14 sacks over the past 2 seasons, 20 sacks over the past 3 seasons, and Steve, he had 83 hurries over the past 2 years. So he can flat out get after the quarterback. That's what this guy does. Trevor Sikkema actually said he reminds him of Adrian Claiborne. He's a guy that is very impactful in the stunt game. He's a high football IQ. He's strong overall. Sometimes he gets stuck on blocks a little bit. His hands don't get put in the right position. And again, it's because they're kind of small. And then his arm length is a little bit of a problem too. Sometimes he can get boxed out and blocked out by bigger, faster offensive tackles that are really good with their footwork and really smooth in their sets. But I think he's a strong defensive end, Steve. He kind of feels like George Karlaftis Part 2. And again, when you have 2 round 1 picks like we had from McDuffie Karlaftis, and we are under the impression they're trying to get McDuffie taken care of. If George Karlaftis is going to demand more than $80-90 million, George Karlaftis might be expendable to the detriment of all of Chiefs Kingdom, because we all like him, but it's tough to start paying all these players because we pay a lot of offensive players. We can't really afford to pay a lot of big money to defenders, and so it makes sense now that the Chiefs go and they're starting to replenish that defensive line, because they may have to keep doing it this way. And I hope George doesn't have to go nowhere, but this now puts a little bit of a backbone behind some of these rumors that we heard that maybe George Karlaftis could possibly be on a trade block here soon.
Yeah, for sure. That's a very good point there. I know it's a lot of guys in the chat kind of thinking that this was a reach here, that he was more of a 4th to 5th round pick. Uh, NFL.com had him 3rd round. I think that he's
been flying up draft boards too, like crazy.
I think if it was a reach at all, maybe he could have been a back end of the 3rd round, early 4th. So I don't think it's a huge reach for the Chiefs here. And just a couple of things to note. The Chiefs always value athleticism. We talk about that over and over again. And he was the 3rd ranked athlete out of all defensive ends in this draft.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and this is a draft where you had guys like James Pierce, who's out there running 4.40s and stuff like that. So this kid ranked 3rd overall in the athleticism score. So I think this is an exciting pick, Mike. Like I said, a bit polarizing. A lot of people did not like the pick. They don't understand the pick. I think it's probably more like it. Once everybody settles in, watches some more tape on Gillotte, I think you'll start to get excited about what you see. So definitely hold out on that.
Steve, one more thing, before you mentioned it, the only ones that tested higher than him throughout this entire process was James Pierce Jr. and Shamar Stewart. And we seen both of those go. We seen James Pierce Jr., them trading a 1st rounder to get back in and get him this year. And then Shamar Stewart went to the Bengals. So those were both 1st round picks. He was right there with them. I don't think it was much of a reach. It was a little bit of a reach, but it's a very good possibility, Steve, that we couldn't have got him at that 95 pick. So I think Brett Veach, you got to give him a little bit of credit here. I think Gillotte comes in and he actually is more productive than Felix Anudike-Uzomah in year 1. I think that'll be pretty obvious to see.
Agreed. I definitely agree with that take. All right, let's move it on, man. The Chiefs moved over out of the trenches finally. They drafted a cornerback. A lot of us thought they were kind of looking at Darian Porter from Iowa State. They weren't, apparently. Maybe they were blowing a little bit of smoke there. Maybe they were interested. He just went a little bit higher than they wanted to spend on him. But either way, they went with a guy that's much in the vein of that, much in the vein of a L'Jarius Sneed-type player, and that's Nohl Williams, the cornerback from UNLV. Mike, this kid is a ball hawk in all aspects of that word. Like anytime someone's talking about a ball hawk, these are the traits they're talking about. Just elite production, 14 career interceptions, exceptional playmaking instincts. He looks like a natural out there. It's like he's on the field to create turnovers, and that's what he does. Physical presence and press coverage. He uses well-timed jams and hand placement to disrupt receivers, the line of scrimmage. Very L'Jarius Sneed-esque when it comes to that. He has excellent route recognition. So he's definitely on the ball out there. His natural ball skills reminiscent of a receiver when the ball's actually up in the air. Very competitive, very tough. He's nice out on the boundaries, man. He's going to play on the outside. He's a versatile defensive back. He's excelled at multiple coverage techniques over his college career. He also has special teams experience as both a coverage man and a returner. So that's something that Dave Tobe is going to like as well. His playmaking instincts is off the charts with him. He just looks like a natural out on the football field. He actually ended his college career with Cal. Wasn't there like a California kid that we thought the Chiefs were looking at last year or the year before? Was it Daniel Scott or somebody like that?
Yeah, Daniel Scott last year.
Yeah, so it's funny that they dipped here to Cal, and then we also got a receiver from Cal, which was Nico Remigio.
Yeah.
So it's weird to start seeing this pipeline building up. But he just showed consistent improvement each season, too, if you watch his college tape. So he's definitely on an upward trend. And that's huge, man. Like, I guess some of the knocks on him, and when I tell you these, you're going to think of none other than L'Jarius Sneed. The biggest knocks on this kid are that he will miss tackles because he dives at their legs. And the other biggest knock is that he gets a lot of penalties, a lot of holding penalties, a lot of pass interference penalties. So here's the thing. He fits the mold of what everyone loved about L'Jarius Sneed. He's almost like a little replica of him. And I think that he could prove to be a fantastic pick for the Chiefs. I love the idea of having a ball hawk like that out there. It's been a while since we've had somebody that just has a nose for the football. We remember how fun Marcus Peters was early in his career. And that's kind of what you're getting with Nohl Williams. You're going to have somebody out there that's going to create turnovers. You always have that excitement when he's out on the field and the other team's passing the ball that you could see a pick six. And I just think that's what you see with Nohl Williams.
Yeah, look, Nohl Williams, you said it. He's 6 foot 199. He's basically 6 foot 200. He run a 4.5, a 1.54 10-yard split. He's got a 34-inch vert. He's athletic as all get out. He is a prototypical bump and run, man-to-man cover corner. He is aggressive. He is going to bump you. He's going to hold you. He's going to be physical. He is Snead. But Chiefs Kingdom got all over Josh Williams over this because you're going to get called nowadays in the NFL. You're going to get called if you are aggressive for a lot of penalties. And sometimes they're going to have cheap penalties. We've seen Josh Williams get called for some very cheap penalties versus the Bucs on Monday Night Football this past year when he got the start, and some of those penalties were just flat out trash. They were just calling it to call it to extend drives. So you're going to see that. Aggressive corners, and this is what Nohl Williams is. He's aggressive. He's probably going to get flagged on this. I hope Chiefs Kingdom don't come down to him the way they did Josh Williams, because I think this could be a Josh Williams replacement. This very well could be a Jalen Watson replacement. Jalen Watson's probably going to get paid a lot, and we can't afford to pay Trent McDuffie. Now we've paid Christian Fulton for 2 years. They can't afford to pay Jalen Watson at the end of this year, more than likely, and this is probably going to be a Jalen Watson replacement, and maybe Josh Williams probably walks too, or they maybe can get him back cheaper than you would get back Jalen Watson. So this guy is a straight up ball hawk. You said it. He reminds me a lot of Marcus Peters, the way he goes after it. He's had 12 interceptions over the past 3 years from 2022 to 2024, Steve. And then that same amount of time, he's totaled 8 touchdowns, 8 defensive touchdowns. He's got return touchdowns. He can return balls in the run game. Tobe's going to love that. The kid's aggressive. He does everything the right way. He's got this confidence about him. Luckily, it wasn't a Shadur Sanders confidence, or he wouldn't have been drafted.
You kind of like that with cornerbacks, right? You like them to be a little mouthy, a little cocky.
You want him to be Deion Sanders. You don't want that from a quarterback. This is what Shadur's going through. But yeah, this dude, he feels at home when he is just kicking receivers down the field. He loves it. He's very good at defending the run too. He can do that. Like you said, he will dive at your feet. He'll miss tackles.
I don't want to interrupt you, but I wanted to address this. Wade says he doesn't agree with the tackling comment. Nohl's a downhill CB and a good tackler. Here's the thing, Wade. Mike said it probably 15 times since he started talking about Nohl Williams. He's aggressive. He's overly aggressive sometimes in the tackling game, and that led to a 19.4% missed tackle rate in 2023. So it's not that he's a terrible tackler. He just gets a bit over aggressive at times, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. If you can find a way to bottle that up and get a little bit better technique on your tackling, and maybe just not overshoot it, then he very well could end up being a good tackler.
He helped his numbers, Steve. You mentioned the 2023 numbers. He actually improved that big time. In 2024, he only missed 3 tackles. So he did manage to get a lot better, and that is good, and that's why he elevated himself like he did. Nohl Williams was starting to fly up draft boards, Steve. We actually had him ranked number 11, right behind Savon Ravel. We had him right there. And so Nohl Williams was the pick. He was the next best player on the board. I think Brett Veach seen Jacob Parrish go to the Bucs. He watched the Commanders take Trey Amos. He was seeing all this happen, and he said, look, we've got to go up, and we got to get our guy. So he traded up. He took Nohl Williams. And from everything we're hearing, that it's a 2026 fourth-round pick. So he didn't give up anything in this draft to go get him. I think it was a good, smart move by Veach. I like this move. I rank this move an A+ as well. I think Brett Veach is having a killer draft. Ashton Gillotte would be the one guy that you would question as a slight reach. And right now, I'm going to give him a C to a C+. I want to let Gillotte see what he can do on the field before I want to grade him either way. But I think right off the bat, I think a C+ or a C is really fair with Gillotte. But I think as soon as you get to camp and you see this guy's motor and you see some of his speed off the edge, if he can bring his testing numbers over, I think Chiefs Kingdom's going to actually really like this guy, and he's going to do what Felix wasn't able to do in his first few years. And I think people's going to start looking at Gillotte and being like, hey, maybe Brett Veach found a diamond in the rough there. I think this draft right now is shaping up to be one of Brett Veach's best drafts he's had.
Wow.